You guys remember the college admission scandal? A bunch of rich celebs got busted because they cheated their kids' way into universities like USC. Aunt Becky and her Target designer husband went to jail for like 2 seconds. I actually saw her husband and the daughter in Beverly Hills shortly after he had been released. He looked rough. It's what prison does to a man. So Felicity Huffman was one of the celebs who got busted. It was a big deal. She, I think, got dropped from some projects, and she hasn't spoken about it until now. And I can't wait to hear what she has to say.
It felt like I had to give my daughter a chance at a future.
You're so rich! You're Felicity Huffman! You could have done what other rich people do and just buy their way in. You could have literally just given a big donation. Oh my God! Or send your daughter to state school. Is she that stupid? I feel like Felicity Huffman is trying to tell us that her daughter is so stupid that she had to do this. It was the only way. Can you imagine your famous mother basically being like, no, you guys don't get it. My daughter is so dumb. She would have had no chance at a future if I did not break the law. 2 seconds in, and this is already great.
So it was sort of like my daughter's future, which meant I had to break the law.
In December of 2017.
I can't. We are talking about the daughter of 2 A-list actors, rich, famous celebrities. William Macy got that Shameless money. Felicity Huffman got that Desperate Housewives money. That's like 1 residual check. Literally. It's not like that anymore, but back in the day, those Desperate Housewives residual checks.
Actress Felicity Huffman drove her daughter to take the SAT test. Her daughter not knowing that Huffman had paid $15,000 for someone to falsify the results.
She was going, can we get ice cream afterwards? Scared about the test. What can we do that's fun? And I kept thinking, turn around, just turn around. And to my undying shame, I didn't.
Felicity Huffman, star of Desperate Housewives, an Oscar nominee, one of 33 wealthy parents to face federal charges in Operation Varsity Blues, accused of conspiring to use bribery and fraud to get their kids into top colleges. The middleman, a self-styled college counselor named Rick Singer.
After a year, he started to say, your daughter's not going to get into any of the colleges that she wants to. And I believed him. And so when he slowly started to present the criminal scheme, it seemed like, and I know this seems crazy at the time, that was my only option to give my daughter a future.
It is crazy. It is crazy. First of all, what she's saying is that unless her daughter had gotten into the specific schools that she applied to, that she wouldn't have a future. That's insane. Her daughter probably had a list of like 10 colleges, okay? So the idea that if her daughter did not get into one of those colleges, she had no future. Your daughter already has a future because of you and your husband. There was never not the option. I am actually flabbergasted at this mentality. Just the mind of someone who doesn't understand their privileged position, not just being very, very rich, but being celebrities.
Hindsight is 20/20, but it felt like I would be a bad mother if I didn't do it. So I did it.
Months later, the FBI was at her door.
They came into my home. They woke my daughters up at gunpoint. Again, nothing new to the Black and brown community.
No. There should be a new law. If you are a wealthy white celebrity, you are no longer allowed to mention the Black and brown community. Keep those communities out of your goddamn mouth. Why are Black and brown people getting dragged into your breaking the law scheme? You are not the same. Her saying being woken up at gunpoint, which is nothing new to the Black and brown community, is linking those experiences when those are not the same experience. Do we understand why Black and brown people's experience with police in this country is not Felicity Huffman's experience? Why do white celebrities keep talking about Black and brown communities? Stop it.
Then they put my hands behind my back and handcuffed me, and I asked if I could get dressed. And I thought it was a hoax.
Not to bring it back to this, but the incident that happened earlier this summer where that happened to me, can you imagine how insane it would be if I was like, I understand what it's like to be a black or a brown person in this country. Black and brown people know that experience all too well. That's what happened to me, and it's what happens to the black and brown community every day. It's nothing new to them. We are linked. We are connected.
I literally turned to one of the FBI people in a flak jacket and a gun, and I went, is this a joke?
It was not. Huffman.
Is this a joke? See, do you want to know the difference, Felicity Huffman? Is that you, rich white lady, could not fathom that you would face serious repercussions for breaking the law. You did not think about the fact that in breaking the law, that there was a good chance of you getting caught. You committed fraud. So no, it's not a joke.
7 days in prison, paid a $30,000
also 11 days.
Did community service and apologized.
11 days.
The people I owe a debt and an apology to is the academic community and to the students and the families that sacrifice and work really hard to get to where they're going legitimately.
She's made no further public statements until now. Why now?
I want to use my experience and what I've gone through and the pain to bring something good, which is to shine a light on Susan Burton's organization called A New Way of Life.
A New Way of Life is a nonprofit that helps formerly incarcerated women get back on their feet by providing housing, clothing, job training, and above all, safety. Here is where Felicity Huffman did her court-ordered community service.
I said, you know, I'm here to apply to work, but I understand if you don't want me. And Susan looked at me and went,
okay.
Yeah, I want you.
Well, I thought we would bring her in.
This is one of those situations where I'm like, it is ultimately a good thing to have a visible, wealthy white celebrity like Felicity Huffman backing a nonprofit like this, which would otherwise not get as much attention. Let's be real, okay? I'm not going to sit here and be like, off with that. It is just the irony. That's the two justice systems, okay? Felicity Huffman served 11 days and paid a $30,000 fine. And now she's woken up to the injustice of the justice system. The motivation is, of course, cringe, but okay. If she helps out this nonprofit to get funding to like actually help incarcerated women who don't have the luxury that she has, fame, money, and whiteness, then okay, I'm on board. The real learning experience would help in funding scholarships for underrepresented communities to contrast the clear privilege. Right, she should keep going with this. If she really wants to atone, if she wants to use her privilege for good, then yeah, that's another great way of doing so. Talk about the inequities in education, right? Not just in the incarceration system, but also in education, and help fund scholarships for students who could never dream of having parents who would pay $15,000 to cheat on their SATs. Like, these are students who don't have the opportunities. Even if they have the skills, the scores, they don't have the means to go to these schools.
You know, put her at a desk and have her work, you know, in the office. And she said, no, I want to do real work. And she organized all of our closets and donations. She went jogging down Central Avenue in South LA and created exercise classes for the women.
150 hours of community service was up. Huffman stayed on and joined the organization's board of directors.
When I saw what A New Way of Life was doing, which is they heal one woman at a time, and if you heal one woman, you heal her children, and you heal her grandchildren, and you heal the community.
Felicity Huffman is one of the most beautiful people I've met in my lifetime. And I know that she's had a hiccup, but it's not the hiccup. It's how you come through the hiccup.
Huffman told me her daughter was turned down by every college she applied to during the scandal. She retook the SAT and earned her way into Carnegie Mellon University, where she's in the drama program. This weekend, Huffman is hosting the 25th anniversary gala for A New Way of Life.
I have so many feelings about this. And I think ultimately what it is that Felicity Huffman gets to find a way through. Felicity Huffman is not someone who was wrongfully incarcerated, and yet she'll be fine. She is fine. Now she gets to have her comeback story by being the face of this charity. The focus is on Felicity Huffman. All I can hope is that there is good that comes from this, even though, of course, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth just because it speaks to the inequalities that are in our society. Felicity gets to focus on something like this rather than how this is actually seriously going to affect her life. A black or brown woman who goes through the prison system gets out, they don't have the luxury then of getting to go be the face of a nonprofit. I'm not trying to come across as like I don't support this. I'm just trying to point out that it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. She doesn't have to rebuild her life, just her reputation. Even just the privilege in getting to break your silence, getting a platform to get to talk about your experience, get to talk about you. So my question is, and I wish the interviewer had asked her this, does Felicity Huffman believe that for real? Does she still think it's one of those like, well, would you do it again? Do you genuinely think that that was the way? Because otherwise your daughter wouldn't have had a future. Like, does Felicity Huffman understand now that her daughter is also extremely privileged and has a future because of that? I really wonder if in her 11 days that she thought to herself, why would I ever think that my daughter wouldn't have a future if I didn't break the law here? Chet Hanks has a future, man. Chet Hanks. The truth is that Felicity Huffman's daughter would have gotten into a college unless she really is the stupidest person on the planet. But it's the idea that if Felicity Huffman's daughter didn't get into these elite colleges, then she doesn't have a future.
The educational consultant she hired to help her daughter get into college. Huffman was just one of dozens of wealthy and influential parents who faced federal charges in the sprawling bribery scheme that made headlines in 2019. The actress pled guilty to conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services mail fraud, serving 11 days in prison, paying a $30,000 fine, and participating in court-mandated community service. What does this Varsity Blues story tell us about the college admissions process? And as Felicity Huffman points out, the advantage that wealthy Americans might have when applying.
It certainly seems like they have an advantage, and when we've interviewed people behind the scenes, what they tell us, Elizabeth, is basically, you know, look, colleges are a business and money talks. So I remember we've interviewed one former college admissions counselor who said, when a college is faced with these choices of accepting a child whose family can pay full sticker price compared to a child whose family might need financial
Exactly.
aid, you know, there's limited amounts of financial aid. Almost always they're going to favor those kids who can pay full sticker price. Now, we do hear about these stories of kids that get, you know, financial aid, big packages, full rides. But for each one of those cases, we're actually seeing a lot of kids who aren't getting anything or having to take out the student loan debt.
This is not just Felicity Huffman that we should be casting shame on. We should also be casting shame on the education system in this country, on higher education. The fact that it is a business. The fact that things like this, where if you need financial aid, that hurts your chances of getting into a school. And now with the Supreme Court overturning things like affirmative action, higher education in this system works against middle class and lower income people in this country. That, you know, tends to be heavily impacting Black and brown communities. There's multiple things happening here, but we can't lose sight of the fact that college has gotten out of control. Cost of college, the fact that more and more presidents of universities are making over $1 million. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it was a handful. And now it's like, who's not making $1 million? They just keep raising these prices arbitrarily, making it harder for students to have a future because those who are able to get into these schools are leaving with mountains of student debt. Not like Felicity Huffman's daughter, like not having a future, but like real not having a future if you don't have a college degree. So we're not even just talking about elite colleges. We're talking about state schools. We're talking about the majority of colleges that are not elite institutions. For instance, when my sister went to the University of Wisconsin, she started there in 2009. That was my oldest sister. When my youngest sister, who's 10 years younger, when she started at the University of Wisconsin 10 years later, the price of admission had gone up $15,000. in just 10 years for a state school. They're charging thousands of dollars more because it's a business and because they can, charging thousands of dollars more a year to get a college degree, and the value of that degree lessening. Being able to leave college and not have any student loans is guaranteeing you a future over somebody who is graduating with a ton of student loans. Someone like Felicity Huffman's daughter has so many advantages over the majority of students in this country. No matter where she goes, no matter how much that college costs, she is not going to be graduating with 6 figures of debt and then going into a job where she's making $30,000 or less a year.
What we're being told is that donors don't necessarily want to fund these programs. What they want to fund are football stadiums. They want their name on a library, for example. So these are really, really tough choices that these colleges have to make. And at the end of the day, we do know that oftentimes the money is what works.
The money talks, as you say. Kelly, Felicity Huffman said she had to break the law to give her daughter that future.
Kelly is me.
Is she really accepting accountability here by coming out and speaking out, or is she sort of deflecting blame?
Feels a little bit like deflection still, right? Because I think like a lot of people back in 2019 when this story first came about, I was confused. I still am. I think that if you're a wealthy parent, why not spend that $15,000 to get your kid the tutoring? We already think that, these children have a leg up over.
Exactly. You have the $15,000 to bribe an SAT tutor. Just do that with the schools. That's how it works for rich people. You literally just donate money and they're like, oh, okay, we'll see your kid in the fall.
Because yes, they can fully fund their college educations, but they also have access to resources that other students just don't have access to. And to cheat the system in this way was egregious back then, and it still is egregious right now. And I think to not fully accept responsibility today for that feels like a little bit of a miss on her part.
You know what it feels like? It feels like Felicity Huffman looked at her 2 options, okay? Spend $15,000 to bribe the SAT tutor, or not the SAT tutor, whoever it was that changed the scores, or spend probably upwards of $1 million in a donation. And she looked at that, and even though she could afford $1 million donation like that, that's more money than $15,000. So let's be real. This wasn't just her looking at the situation going, I have to do something to get my daughter in. It was calculating what is the cheaper route here.
Has anything really changed since these headlines first came out?
Well, money still talks, particularly on a college campus. And you look at the trend of college presidents being more business savvy than actually being representative of academia. I don't see that trend necessarily changing. But I tell you what's really disappointing for me as a parent myself is not that she cheated the system as much as she cheated her own daughter and having the capacity to understand how to manage disappointment. As a dad, my son got accepted to every school he applied for except for the one he really wanted to go to. I understand what she's talking about.
Yeah.
It's painful to see your child deal with disappointment. But you know what? He came out on the other side tougher, smarter, and more resilient. Those lessons you can't teach. They can only live through. And unfortunately, Felicity robbed her daughter of that opportunity.
I cannot imagine being her daughter, knowing that my mom thought that this was the only option because I was so stupid. That my mom had to commit fraud. Can you imagine being her kid and finding that out? Devastating. Looking back on your life and going, has my mom done that for everything? Was this just the first time? I don't think so. Yeah, that was a good panel to bring on to talk about this. It's not just having white people on to be like, Felicity has learned her lesson and she is doing good work now. What would we not do for our children? I can't get over the line, had to break the law to give her daughter a chance at a future. That to me tells me she doesn't think that she did anything wrong. Truly, I had to do it. I had no choice because my daughter's so dumb. My daughter's so stupid, right? The truth is that her daughter could have gotten into college. It's just that the colleges Felicity Huffman deemed worthy of going to were ones that, yeah, she probably couldn't get into. Ones that most people probably cannot get into. It's about staying in your sphere of eliteness and not going to a place that regular people go to. Just regular middle to lower class Americans go to.